Hi guys, you've been Central here and welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be doing another tier list video. We're going to be doing today the Sixth Doctor's era. Arguably one of the most debated eras, as a lot of people, it has its fair share of shocking stories which people consider some of the worst stories of classic run, and it also has some good stories which I personally think are quite underrated. But yeah, without further ado, let's start. We're going to start with his first story and his post regeneration story, the Twin Dilemma. Twin Dilemma for a lot of people is a clear F tier. For me, it's an F tier. It's all right. It's very controversial in the sense that, like, I think Colin Baker doesn't want to play the Doctor the way he wanted to play it. Wait, I mean, he didn't want to play the Doctor the way he had to play it. And you can tell that in this story, something went on behind the scenes to make Colin Baker kind of not his doctor, but something's going on behind the scenes, which you can clearly see in this story. And it's not really it doesn't work very well. And it's just the fact that he strangles Perry is just not very. It's not good. It's not good. And people can say, I mean, I love Colin, but people will try and defend him, saying, well, he was having a post regeneration trauma or whatever. And you can say, yeah, because he had a harder regeneration in Caves of Randazani. But you could say the same for Peter Capaldi's doctor, but he didn't go around strangling Clara at any point. So, you know. Also, its arrogance feels like he's dialed up to 11 at this point. So it's just not nice. Next, got Attack of the Cybermen, and I really like Attack of the Cybermen. It's funny because coming off of Twin Dilemma, which is arguably which is his worst story, you get a really good story. And I put it straight in S tier because there's actually, for surprisingly, there is 3 stories which I will put straight in S tier, which you'll see when they come. So just keep looking out for them. But yeah, it's a really good story. I think a lot of people put slack on this story because it is a bit of a fan service for Tomb of the Cybermen, but and the 10th Planet as well, I suppose, a little bit as well. But that doesn't make it bad. Also, I think Colin Baker, he's a lot better in this story. He's still arrogant, but he's not as much, and he's seeming to get a bit more of his own way. Next, you got arguably a lot of people's favorite stories, Vengeance on Varos. Vengeance on Varos is a good A tier. I enjoy the political commentary in this, and I know some people at the time, like Mary Whitehouse, were trying to get the show cancelled for being too violent, too dark. And yeah, I can see where she's coming from. To be honest, there's a thing where I think the thing is that when they came with that, which is another thing, is Mary Whitehouse trying to get it banned because it's too dark. Where it's one of those situations where it's not, no, don't ban it because it's not too dark. It's, no, don't ban it because people who watched it in the 60s and 70s, early 70s, are now a lot older, and people who've watched Tom Baker's run, who watched at the beginning of Tom Baker's run, are now significantly older. So like you can't, complain at the BBC too much. But however, I think the big thing was that Doctor Who was moved earlier in the runtime, which is probably why. Next, you got Mark Lorani. Now, if you're someone who's watched my stuff before and who's watched my Trial of the Time Lord review, I actually, yeah, I do know I don't like Pip and Jane Baker. However, the one thing I like about Pip and Jane Baker is they did do some okay stories, and Macaroni's alright. It was one of those okay stories. They were quite odd people because I really hate them, but I do have to like them. Like I hate them for doing 2 stories, and then I like them for doing 2 other stories. So it's quite an odd thing with them. It's like if it's because there's 2 of them, it always feels like maybe one of them got more writing. Like maybe Pip did more in the Mark Lorani and the Terror of the Vervoids, which is the other one I like a little bit more, which you probably already know if you've seen my Trial of the Time Lord review. And then Jane got more in the Ultimate Foe and Time Lorani. Um, Back to Mark the Ronnie. Yeah, it's a good story. I like the historical aspect of it. I think season 22 as a whole is actually a pretty good season. However, I think for most of the stories you can technically complain that the 45-minute runtime doesn't really work. Like in the Mark of the Ronnie, it feels like if it was 25 minutes long, then it would have been a bit better because the Ronnie's reveal would have been more grand. However, but the Ronnie's reveal comes quite mid in like the first part, and it feels like it doesn't really need to be there. However, it makes sense because they were still trying to write for 25-minute marks. So it would have been if it was 25 minutes, the reveal would have been a lot better. Two Doctors, it's a D tier for me. Three parts long at 45 minutes, which makes it a six-parter. And yes, you got two Doctors, and you got two Doctors, you got the Sontarans, and you got Robert Holmes. What could possibly go wrong? Well, you know, let's see what went wrong. The two Doctor gets superbly underused. Uh, the Sontarans do absolutely nothing, and they're not even like the properly main villain. The Doctor gets turned into an androgen for some part of the times. Perry almost gets eaten alive, and the Doctor tries to strangle one of the androgams to death. That's quite a. That just makes it quite a jarringly bad episode to watch. Um, and then, but the one good thing about this, I do think, is the fact that because not obviously this isn't Colin Baker's fault, and I think this is an issue a lot of people have, where similar to Jodie Whittaker, I do not like Jodie Whittaker as an actor. As an actor, I don't think her acting is very good, and it's not right for Doctor Who. But I think everything with Chris Chibnall's writing and the way he's taking the show, similar to in Colin Baker's time, the way that Johnny Turner and Eric Saywood took the show, um, has an makes Colin Baker look bad, similar to Jodie Whittaker. Like Chris Chibnall is written The Timeless Children, and it's not the night as some diehard fans don't like that and stuff, and they complain that Jodie Whittaker is a bad Doctor because of it. And as I said, I don't like her writing, but it's unfair to me, in my opinion, because I like Colin. It's unfair that some people don't like Colin because the writing's bad. Where I think Colin actually plays a lot better than Tom Baker. In not saying that Tom Baker's bad, but in the sense that in some of his later stories, if Tom Baker has a bad story, sometimes you can see that he doesn't care as much. Where in the Colin Baker's run, even if it's an awful story like Twin Dilemma, he's still trying to play play the part the way John Nathan Turner wants it, which is annoying that then he got cut off. Back to what I was going to say originally, I like because the Doctor is more arrogant. It was nice to see in the two Doctors something which I think should have happened to make the Doctor bit better would be have another male companion in the TARDIS with the Sixth Doctor and Perry, because Jamie McCrimmon in this, who's with the Sixth Doctor and Perry for most of the time, he really works because the Doctor's trying to be arrogant and he's rude to Perry, and then like Jamie kind of calls him out for it a couple of times, and it works. And I think if maybe Jamie might have stuck around for a little bit longer, which I'm not sure would have worked for Fraser Hines, but but it might have just been a bit nicer, and also it would have worked, better. But anyway, that's obviously all in the past. I also kind of did hope when I first watched the story, because Patrick Troughton was in it for such a long time, and I didn't know. I knew it was called The Two Doctors, but I thought at the time it would have been cool if they just brought Patrick Troughton back for a coloured episode with Jamie McCrimmon, and they literally had just done say something like, I don't know, this was post Fury from the Deep, but pre the Wheel in Space, and then they literally just went, hey, here you go, here's a second Doctor story, and then they just gave Colin the week off, or the couple of weeks off. And I know that sounds a bit stupid because now we know that Colin had less stories, but I think it would have been cool seeing Patrick Troughton do that. Just have a story in colour for no reason. Because they did bring him back for no reason. Next we've got Time Lash. Time Lash is it's a D. it's just one of those ones where I think this one I believe, if some memory serves, one of the first part ran underrun by like about overrun by like 4 or 6 minutes, and then the second part underrun or something. I think actually might have been the other way around. I think the first part underran, the second part overran, so they had to beef out the first part with a couple more TARDIS scenes, and then they have to cut parts from the second part to make it hit the 45 minutes. And ultimately, it just becomes one of those stories where it's like, hey, the villain looks quite cool, the prosthetics look good, but you can Google if you Google search up the villain, then just don't you don't need to watch the story, and that's you saved yourself an hour and a half. Then you got Revelation of the Daleks, my favorite Colin Baker story. It's really good. It's just a really good story. Terry Malloy is good in this. Colin Baker's good in this. Perry's good in this. I think a lot of people complain about this story being the fact that the Doctor isn't in it. Well, he's in it, but he's not actually doing anything until the second half. And again, this is another one of those situations where it's like, well, that's mainly due to the fact that it's a 45-minute runtime. If this was 25 minutes, it would have been easier for them to maybe done the first part where the Doctor's not in it as much, or he might not even be in it at all, and then you just get the Colin Baker got the week off in the first part, he's not doing anything. But then in the second part, bring Colin Baker in, get him to do everything in the first part. Just, so it's more like in the first part, you got to see what everyone else is trying to do to build the world, and then in the second part, you now want the Doctor to stumble in, and then it's like you're watching the same time. You're watching both of the scenes at the same time, but different things are happening. I don't know. It's like they're both of those scenes are happening at the same time, but they're at different points. They're at different places, so you get to watch it, watch it while everyone else is doing what they need to do in the actual place, and what the Doctor's doing for more interesting world build. But anyway, I think it is definitely a gruesome story, and it is a good way to end off season 22, in my opinion, because now we have the hiatus, which for a long time, and then we came back finally in 1986. We came back. Doctor Who came back. We got the Trial of the Time Lord. Now, a lot of people will go, well, it's a 14-part story. No, it's 4 parts. Yes, I understand that it says in the thing, Trial of the Time Lord, part 14. But, first of all, I'm pretty sure in the Blu-ray they changed it. Second of all, they released it as 4 DVDs. If they'd, so I'm counting it as 4 different stories. Especially how, if they wanted to, especially how the fact that the War Games is 10 parts, so but they released that as all one thing. So, First up, we got Mysterious Planet. Worst Robert Holmes script, my opinion. It feels boring, lazy, not worth your time, but exactly the same as Orphan 55, but it's better than Orphan 55, tell you that much. Mind Warp. Worse than Adventures on Varos. Nabil Shaban is hilariously funny in this. I like the fact that they killed off Perry, because at the end it does show how Colin Baker genuinely has changed and is a lot more sorry for his sorry, and he's just more sorry for his actions. We're kind of going quick fire now, but we are going with Terror of the Vervoids. Cool murder mystery. It's like Black Orchid, which I do like Black Orchid. It's a weird murder mystery, whodunit, and I just really enjoy that. Also, I enjoy it because I think a lot of times in the classic run, the Doctor just gets captured by people because they don't know who he is. In this, one of the guys recognizes Colin Baker's Doctor as the Doctor, which makes it significantly easier to watch, because at the end of the episode, or later on at the end of the episode, you realize that the captain of the thing realizes there's murders going on, and he goes, well, if we give the Doctor enough rope, he says something like, if we give the Doctor enough rope, we can he'll figure out. He says like hang himself, but basically he means like if we give the Doctor enough time, if we give him enough freedom, he'll stumble around and figure it out for us. So yeah. The last is the in the last, and I did say that I think the Twin Dilemma is the worst story of Colin Baker's run, and I lied. I hate the last part of the Trial of the Time Lord. However, no, yes, it is the way. It is actually, yeah, it's okay. It's better, and I'm gonna give it a better because Robert Holmes' script is good. Robert Holmes' first part is great. Pippin Jane Baker's no, it just it's no, it just don't. It's not good. It's really not good. And it's like Colin Baker is really trying hard, and I understand that Pippin Jane Baker had not like they had like a couple of hours before they had to start filming it, so to make a script. So and they didn't have any, and so it was like it must have been hard because they didn't have any of Robert Holmes ever now actually didn't finish the script, and I also believe that Eric Saywood script that he submitted, which he then withdrew when he decided to leave this show and leave his position of script editor. He did force them not to use any of his material in their script, so I can see why it was difficult. But like it just makes it feel like a shambles of a story. And then going into Twin Time and the Rani, it's like yeah, it's just awful. It's just I think it's just disrespect. It's disrespectful to Robert Holmes, who actually, although had written some pretty poor stories for Colin, in my opinion, had done a decently good, actually a really good story for him, and then it just didn't, work out. But yeah, that's just been my opinion, and I do really like Colin Baker's run, and I also believe I did a top 5 on him. So yeah, it's quite unusual because he's one of the few Doctors where he's both. Maybe it's because his era is a lot shorter, but his era is either pretty good or pretty bad. Like there's 5 stories in his awful in like D to F, but then there's 3 stories in B, A, and S, but no C. But yeah, again, if you have enjoyed, like and subscribe. Go watch my other content. I've done tier lists on the 10th Doctor. I've done one on the 7th Doctor, and you can go watch my reviews, top 5s, and all that. But yeah.